I was once driving in the country, and was pouring rain in the dead of night. So hard that I was driving very slowly and couldn't see any of the signs. I had never been in rain this heavy. I had to pull over to the side of the road to try and see the sign, to see if I was going in the right direction. I didn't get out due to the rain, so was craning my neck forward to try and make out where I was, when suddenly the passenger door opened and a man got inside the car, sat down, and looked at me. Here is South Africa. There is a fair amount of violent crime and hijackings, so I instinctively started panicking and yelling and screaming at the top of my lungs, flailing my arms to try and do something, anything to stop this guy from attacking me. He started screaming as well in terror and jumped out the car. I quickly leant over and closed the passenger door and sped off down the road. I was breathing so heavily at this point and trying my best to calm down, nearly in tears. I kept replaying it in my head the whole time and suddenly remember that the man smiled at me. It suddenly dawned on me that it was probably a hitchhiker that I hadn't seen, who thought that I was pulling over to give him a lift, only to be greeted by me screaming and trying to hit him. Was probably his scariest encounter with a stranger as well.
It's a mix of the scariest and the best. I was 11 and at the park with my cousin who was 3. My cousin, being a stubborn 3-year-old, told me to leave him be, and I sat out on the bench. I was just reading my book and occasionally looking up until this 50-something-year-old man sat down next to me and just started talking. He asked me which kid was mine 4 times, even after I made it quite clear I was uncomfortable, and then he gets all close to me and was like, "Do you want another one?" So I started freaking out until this homeless man, who I later knew to be Marty, pulled me off the bench and told him that he was lucky he didn't pop his jaw and told me to go home. I'm glad Marty showed up, because I don't know what I would have done.
I dropped my son off at school one morning and then went to the grocery store with my infant daughter. It was so early, there was only 1 or 2 other customers. There was an older man with a walker that I didn't really pay too much attention to that kept popping up in the same aisle as us. I got out to my car and put my groceries in, and then was putting my daughter in her car seat when the man came up behind me. He asked me a question, and when I turned to answer, he shoved his walker into the back of my legs, pinning me against my car inside the open door. I tried moving around but couldn't go anywhere except forward, and he started pushing me down to the floor of my car. I was so scared that once he had me down there he was going to go for my daughter, so I threw myself over her so my whole upper body was in her car seat and wedged myself in tight, trying to cover as much of her as possible. He grabbed me by the hair and was trying to pull me up when someone started honking their car horn. Another mom had been sitting in her car with her own baby asleep and had seen what was happening. Another car pulled up behind mine and the man ran over and got in quickly, obviously never needing the walker. The police were called, but the plates on the car that he left in were stolen, so as far as I know he was never found.
When Ghostbusters 2 came out, I wanted to see it. My mom took me to the local theater. I think I was around 9. I needed to use the bathroom, so I ran down the small hall and turned the corner. When I saw a much older man come out of the bathroom. When he saw me he stopped, went back in. When I didn't move he opened the door, peeking his head and arm out, motioning me to come towards him. I probably looked like a deer in headlights. I didn't move. It was frozen until he said, come on in." Panic rushed over me and I ran back towards my mom, who said I was pale white. She quickly left the theater with me and went home. Stranger danger worked out that day in the 80s. A similar thing happened to me when I was 10 at a drugstore. I was reading a comic when a man who looked like Santa started talking to me. He had duct tape and paper towels in his cart. I remember cause I spent a lot of time in there and never knew they had carts. He asked if I could come to his apartment across the street and help him move some boxes. I told him I'd have to ask my mom. Then he leaned in and quietly added that he had some penthouses I could have in exchange. I immediately stood up, walked over to the counter and told the lady what he said. He hustled out while she was dialing security. I don't think they caught him, but they had him on security cam. I also remember exactly what he looked like. His white shoes, flooded pants, light striped button-down short-sleeved shirt with suspenders, his too tight watch and oddly thin wedding band. I hope I see him again one day. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. Be safe, friends.